Okay, so this is not how I learn. This is not how I teach. I'm feral. My children are feral.
Okay, so we're going to do some reaction videos today.
All right, so the first one, how to make sure your homeschooled child doesn't become weird. Was that the goal?
Don't be weird and your kids won't be weird?
I mean, I come from the camp of normal as a setting on a dryer, so what's wrong with being weird?
I'm from the camp of, I'm not the weird one. All of you are weird and I'm normal.
No, I see no problem with being weird, so
Okay,
I'm
next.
already probably not gonna like it.
Homeschoolers in high school going into college drink less, do less drugs, are not partiers. Also, academically, our scores are off the charts. We're getting into better schools. The Ivy Leagues seek out homeschoolers these days.
I remember seeing homeschool kids as a kid, and they were always kind of weird. That would be my biggest concern. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it comes down to the parents, because obviously if you keep your kid just inside and you don't facilitate any other kind of extracurriculars, they're not going to benefit from it. And so again, it goes back to the parents. If you are making this decision...
Like I said.
Okay, no, she's absolutely right on that, though. There are a couple of different ways that you can homeschool, and you do not want to homeschool in a vacuum. Actually going out and experiencing the world is one of the magical things that you get to do when you homeschool. And interacting with other humans is super important.
Right. Now, they threw out some stats that aren't like 100% true.
Right.
Yes, Ivy Leagues do like homeschoolers. Yes. People do seek out homeschoolers, but it's not like come one, come all homeschoolers.
Right.
You still have to get that SAT score. They want the homeschooler with the SAT score.
Right.
Because they want to make sure that once you're in, you can stay. Now, could you be missing a couple of things here and there as nature by a homeschooler? Absolutely. But just because you're a homeschooler doesn't mean the colleges are going to snap you up. You need to come with some, I don't know.
Well, and also they talked about test scores being off the charts. And just because you're a homeschooler does not mean your test scores are going to be off the charts. Because again, different philosophies of homeschooling.
Right.
In homeschooling, you absolutely have the opportunity to accelerate and to be able to hone skills that will make test scores higher. That being said, that's an intentional choice. Radical unschooling, we know of people who've struggled to get a GED.
We also got a radical unschooler into over 30 colleges.
And right. So it's all about educational philosophy at home. What are your values?
Can you define radical unschooling?
Oh, okay.
Just very quickly.
So,
You first.
Unschooling is a fully unstructured approach to education. You're following whims and questions and desires as a student, and you're learning about what you want to learn about. As a facilitator of radical unschooling, there is literally no direction from the facilitator at all to hone into what kind of education we're having here. You can have directed unschooling where a facilitator is going to be like, and now why don't we explore this? And it's still a very experiential, hands-on kind of approach to education, but it's not just what do we want to learn today. And if the child says nothing but video games, cool, video games will teach you something. There's radical unschooling can work. We've seen radical unschooling work.
So in my experience, there's unschooling or self-directed child learning where you just say, oh, this is what Timmy's interested in. So we're going to do our reading, writing, math, and everything around the subject because this is how we're going to get Timmy's attention.
Directed unschooling.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then we have a type of unschooling, which I said that the kid who got 30 colleges was radically unschooling. No. This is the type of unschooling he was. I don't have a name for it yet. See if you can name it.
Okay.
He had an interest, and mom put her entire back into it, and took him to everything that was related to that, just got him out into the world, dealing with professionals in that field, and just full-on exposure, and his education just kind of...
That feels like directed unschooling to me.
Okay, but she did it. It wasn't anything that she planned.
Right.
She just was like, oh, you like that? Bet. Let's go do that.
Right.
And let's go find adults doing that.
Right.
And let's go take expensive trips around the country doing that.
Yep.
You know, and so she took his interests and kind of exploited them, and that just came out magically.
It did.
For him.
It did.
And then there's just the type of unschooling that was on Dr. Phil, where they're like, today I want to lay in bed. Okay, well, get your rest. Today I'm going to play video games. Okay, well, have fun. Today I'm going to do math. Okay, I'm not doing math anymore. Okay. And so I feel like there's some value in self-directed learning, but what's missing in when we get radical about it is the child gets to touch those interests, but then children will wander off once they felt it. You have to make them complete it.
Right.
And that's what this parent did. She's like,
right.
Oh, we're doing this. Oh, we're doing this. So yeah. So this video, they made some good facts. End of the day, I think we defined weird different than they did.
Yeah, absolutely. Because just being around other people is not going to keep your child from being weird.
No, I'm weird. My kid's weird.
I'm weird. I'm okay with being weird.
I love being weird. I don't want to be normal.
Being capable of functioning in a society with other humans seems to be kind of what they're going for here. And so I would accept that, yes, that is a skill set that has to be taught. And the way to do that is to experience life with other humans.
Okay, so what's the next video? Do I just scroll up?
Just scroll.
If you're interested in becoming a homeschooling mom but not sure you fit into the homeschool community, this video is for you. One of the biggest homeschooling stereotypes is that you have to be a skirt-wearing, long hair, van-driving, homesteading, crunchy mom. And yes, while I do drive a bus, have long hair, and have definitely become more health conscious over the years, for so long I felt like I do not fit that stereotype, so I cannot homeschool. However, nothing could be further from the truth, so that's
Okay, before we keep listening to this, though, I'm just going to have to say, I mean, it's very pretty.
It's gorgeous.
It looks like school at home. That looks so structured.
It's so clean.
It's clean, and I like that it's clean, and the colors are lovely. That looks so structured.
Well, but here's the thing. If you organize a room this way and set all the homeschool stuff up that way, then you can take your stuff and go in a different corner when that's too much order for you.
There were little stacks of notebooks at a table, like the kid's supposed to sit there at the table.
I loved it.
Okay, so this is not how I learn. This is not how I teach. I'm feral. My children are feral.
Well,
Come on. No. Come on. You put this down. You don't play with this. You ripped up my wife's flowers. Hey, give me this. You give me this. You're not supposed to go play with something else. Hey, what's going on here?
It's spiraling out of control.
think about our library and how I work so hard to keep it clean.
Understood.
I like that structure of having that there and having things that you can pull off the shelves and things like that, whether you stack them neatly on a table, that's a different story. But then when you want to take things down, you can go get a blanket and go under a table. But I need to start in a place of order.
The orderliness I'm good with. I'm good with there
the
not
chairs.
being tons
It was the chairs and
of
stacks.
visual clutter.
Yeah.
It was the constricting. You're going to now sit at this table
Oh,
and
no.
do.
No one
It's
sits at
like-
that table.
So it's like when we were renting the space from where we were before we were here. And ultimately, as we're having this conversation with the facilities manager, and the facilities manager is looking at us and saying, your children are not allowed to sit on the sofas while you're teaching them. They have to sit at the tables because that's how children do school. That's what this feels like to me. Like, no.
I feel the grading. So
part of homeschooling, the freedom of homeschooling, is that you can learn in the environment that you're comfortable in, and this is deeply uncomfortable to me.
young moms are interested in this sense of order because it feels like control, though, I think.
Control. That's so
So
cute.
for me, we did start off very orderly this way. But once they knew what they were going to do for the day, Jordan went and got a quilt and threw it over the table and then climbed under the table.
As one does.
So, I mean, you can, if you start with order and you end with order, then you can school however you want, in my opinion. But that's delicious.
That looks like a person to me. Okay, go on.
Something that's holding you back the way it held me back for years, I want to dispel that right now. There's also no one single right way to homeschool. There are so many options from traditional to classical. We do a little bit of a fusion of both. There are also online programs, hybrid programs, co-ops, and so many more out there that you can look into and find out what works best for your family. And that's honestly the beauty of homeschool, is that you can completely customize it to you, your kids, your family, your schedule, your life. We like to get our school done earlier in the day. Some people like to sleep in and start it later. And you can do whatever works for you. Lastly, what I wish I would have known in my first year of homeschooling is that you are not a slave to your curriculum. Your curriculum should work for you.
So
all the rest of that was entirely correct.
yeah. We were 9 to 1 mom. What 9 to 1 moms? 9 to 1 homeschoolers. 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I fed them lunch at 1.
And we were never so structured. Now, in hindsight, we probably should have had more structure in the way that we did things, because that's something that my almost 18-year-old kind of struggles with now.
We've had this conversation, though.
We have.
Homeschooling needs to be an extension of your parenting style. I raised children who had no desire to peel off from me.
Right.
You raising children who are going to be very free-spirited people.
We're feral.
And we are hermits. And we love to be around each other, elbow to elbow. My son made me drive to his house this weekend so he could stare at me for 3 hours.
That tracks.
So it has to be an extension of your parenting style. And if you don't have one yet, if you don't have a parenting philosophy, get one.
Get one.
Read a lot of books. Figure out who you are.
Everybody has a parenting style and philosophy. They might just not know what it is. Figure out what your parenting style and philosophy are.
See, I'm crazy homeschool mom. Like, remember when they have like dragon parent? Like, I was like, ooh, she's calling to my spirit. You know, like, I'm not going to culturally appropriate, but I feel the Asian way in my soul. I forgot what I was going to say because I said something wild.
I did not have the self-awareness when we got started because I wasn't anticipating doing any of this.
Yeah.
So I did not necessarily do that reflection. I've done a lot of reflection on educational philosophy and styles. Mm-hmm. We went and got a master's degree in education because we're looking at getting our program accredited. And so that seemed like something we wanted to have at the time. We apparently don't need it, but here we are, we've got it. But philosophy and kind of the big abstract thoughts are my headspace in general. And so that's where I tend to kind of operate. So I've not ever necessarily dived into the practical because that's just not something that keeps my attention very long. I read articles online. I don't necessarily read long form books on the practical.
I mean, I'm just self-aware, and I married a self-aware person because we're both like small cogs in big families. And so we're both the quiet watchers. We're both the note takers. And so when he was like, okay, if we're going to have children, like we sat down and had a whole conversation of here's what we're going to do, here's what we're not going to do with kids. And so when we decided to homeschool, which was his idea, by the way, years before I finally agreed and he did that horrible happy dance, you know, we already had a parental philosophy going that we could come off of. Just like when you start a business, you need a mission and vision. When we decided to have kids, we had a mission and vision.
That would have been nice to have, but we did not have that.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I know a lot about I'm very self-aware about my personal behavior, but that never extended to my interaction with and relationship with my kids until my kids were a little bit older. Like we were already well and truly homeschooling before I realized that the two things were affecting each other. Like I knew my own values, I knew my own way of going about the world, but no, I had not extended that to the parenting thing until later. I mean, now they're kind of in sync, but that's where a lot of the mistakes that we made came from.
So if you start more free, just living your life like it's golden, and you start homeschooling, at some point when you go, something's not connecting right, you can then sit down and do your disc and do your this and do your that, and figure it out. Yeah.
Which we've done. My child's gonna graduate. He's ticked all the boxes, much to his chagrin. He fought me on some of them, but here we are.
So something I wanted you to circle back to,
Yes.
because I heard you mention this, and I think it's really fascinating that you immediately were like, wow, this looks unachievable. That is actually a huge epidemic across TikTok with influencers of all kinds.
It's
right
a
now.
real problem.
We've got like
A few moments later.
So
You got
what's
some facial
affecting-
expressions from me, though.
what's affecting the
So-
homeschool environment, and this is why I chose that specific
Please,
TikTok.
I'm so interested right now.
Is it's that unachievable. It's the making it picture perfect. Like we've seen that on social media before, but it's at an all-time high right now.
Really,
It's at an
is-
all-time high right now.
I see a whole lot of homeschool questions on different homeschool boards, and you're right, this has to be addressed, because what someone will say is, please show me your homeschool room.
Yes.
What does it look like? And then the people whose homeschool rooms look normal or a little chaotic won't show them. And then so we're just seeing this library system. And so,
Or the
and what's,
perfect table.
what most of those people really want is, please show me that I'm not failing
right.
here.
Because, and that's...
We need to tour the building. We need to tour the building.
We do need to tour the building.
I'll
We
take
need
care
to
of it.
tour the building before we've cleaned it. But that's always been a problem for social media. And that's a side effect of social media. We as humans want to present the best of ourselves. And social media has just sort of fed that neuroses. And so when you get to the homeschool community and when you get to the homeschool influencers and they're showing you these beautiful spaces that they've taken all this time to curate and to maintain, I don't have time for that. I take anything that I see on Pinterest or Facebook or wherever with a grain of salt, because that's been staged. That's not where real life happens.
But there's still Pinterest things that feature so very much.
Oh, absolutely.
Like fantastical libraries.
And I will use some of those things knowing that they are unattainable in the form that I am seeing them here as inspiration for things that do work in my lifestyle. And working with the things that I already have, working with the space that I already have, knowing that I'm not going to dedicate a room in my house for nothing but homeschool, especially knowing my kids aren't sitting at that table anyway. My child's homeschooling from the top of a loft bed as he, curls up there with laptop. You know, as long as the work's getting done, wherever you're comfortable. And so I've learned to take all of that with a grain of salt, knowing that the pretty staged picture is an ideal. It's not necessarily practical, and certainly not practical for everyone.
Moms who are mine and Jordan's age are seeing this, and this is all we are constantly exposed to.
Right.
Constant.
Okay, I love you
We're
guys.
targeted with that stuff.
I love you guys.
Right.
I love you and Jordan, and I love people your age. However, stop looking to each other for guidance. Now, definitely look to each other for drinking buddies, to commiserate and stuff like that. But please, find an old head.
The advice is going to be better for people who have lived the experience.
And I'm not
all the way
trying to
through.
tell people how to be, but when I was homeschooling, I saw a lot of people who were in the same part of the journey as me, telling each other what to do, and I was like,
You don't have any more experience than anyone
and
else.
I was actually a homeschool blogger, and my editor was like, talk more. And I'm like, there are things I don't feel equipped to talk about yet. And so she had to hire an older homeschooler to address those things. And I felt that was as it should be.
That's how our relationship started.
Right.
Because I'm 10 years behind you.
Right.
And my kids are
10 years behind
10
mine.
years behind your kids.
Right.
And so I'm like, all right, help me not screw up my kids.
I love you, baby homeschoolers. Definitely join forces with each other, but find yourself some old heads
The advice will be more
who
valuable.
have been through the journey.
And stop scrolling, comparing yourself to everything that you see.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You're interested in me. I had a great experience being homeschooled, but I didn't see that many people that often.
Yeah.
So when someone wanted to talk to me, you better believe I want to talk to them more. I would just be talking to them. You definitely had this experience with me when we first met, where I would just keep talking. And I feel like you definitely, because he blew up in high school and like everybody knew who he was, and he's obviously a very attractive person.
Oh,
He was like, I'd be lying if I said you weren't. To the point, like in high school, you know how people are, down to like use you or be mean to you and stuff. Part of the reason that you liked hanging out with me is because I literally did not care. Like if somebody has like something that everybody else wants, I literally don't care. I'd rather just be your friend over like, oh my gosh, like they have so many followers and then like we can make content, yada yada yada. I'm like, I don't care.
Jordan said that.
Yeah.
And her aunties, my husband's sisters would not babysit my child because she talked too much.
That's fair.
And she would walk away from the children and go find the adults to talk to the adults. She's never been a child. She would go to sleepovers and she would go find the adults would call me and say, "Oh, I'm just hanging out with Jordan. All the other kids are downstairs." And I think, and in hindsight, they were kind of like, tell Jordan to go downstairs. I was like, "No, she likes you." Because I can go real blonde and not really catch the meaning of what's being said. But even before Jordan was homeschooled, I had a boss who came to my house and she said to me, "Does she have friends?" Like, kids are going to be who they are. And if you take a homeschool kid who was already likes having a conversation with everyone, especially adults, when they homeschool, they're going in further. So it's not like homeschoolers are these like hungry people for attention.
Right.
But if you find someone who's already highly social, when they homeschool, they're going to be more social. If they're unsocial when they homeschool, they're going to be more unsocial.
Yeah.
It just magnifies things,
I accept that statement.
which I'm okay with. People asking me if I'm going to homeschool again next year. It's a black woman in a house coat dancing. So she's tapping out. Okay, and this is what just happened. This is what just happened. Just go watch the video how COVID broke homeschooling.
Indeed.
Because these people aren't homeschooling because it was their vision and mission.
Right.
These people aren't homeschooling because they wanted to touchy-feelies with their kids. These people are homeschooling because the kids were failing them, and as soon as things look normal again, they're dipping.
Yep.
Period. Period. Yes.
Accurate.
and if you feel that way, don't do it. Don't homeschool.
Don't do it. Just don't do it.
Right. Dipping is absolutely the correct choice there. If that's how you feel about the process, that's
Dip.
not anything that
Because
you
if
should
you're not happy, your children aren't going to be happy.
right. Like it upsets the whole household.
But don't change your mind again next year.
Right. You can't do this cycle in and out, in and out, in and out. That just does a disservice to your children.
Here's why I pulled my kids out of school. I got tired of the bullies, and I'm not talking about the kids. I'm talking about the teacher. When I found out that they were going to change it to where my kids couldn't talk during lunchtime, that was a problem for me. And then they were trying to fail my son. They tried to fail him because he wouldn't show them how he got the correct answer. Naturally, my son is good at math. So he just learned it, just naturally. You're not going to fail my son because he got it right but didn't explain it. Here's why I pulled my kids out of school. I got tired of the bullies, and I'm not talking about the kids. I'm talking...
Yeah.
I'm real twitchy right now.
That's a fair reaction.
Because I moved from New Orleans to New York to Georgia. I got sick in New Orleans. I moved to New York to be near my in-laws to get well. And then my husband got the job here and we moved here. My kids were gifted in New Orleans. My kids were gifted in New York. My kids were no longer gifted in Georgia.
And what did the school tell you?
They told me a lot of things. But I chose my neighborhood. I chose Gwinnett County because on paper it was a very diverse county.
And because the school system is supposed to be amazing.
I chose elementary because it was a top, I just said that out loud, because it was a top-notch school. And they told me, who did I think I was to assume that my children were gifted, my son in particular. And then 2 years later, when I went to pull him out, they said, who do you think you are? How do you think you're gonna homeschool a gifted child?
The child that's not in the gifted program.
Oh, now he's gifted? They refused. Oh my God. They refused to give my child the gifted designation he deserved, and they blamed it on an occasional bad grade. My baby had Crohn's. My baby had a stomach illness. So his grades were 100, 100, 100, 120. Because some days he had a bad stomach. And so they would just use any excuse. And they finally, I was like, he's bored, fix it. And they were like, we pulled him out today for special enrichment. And then they were like, oh, that's not working because now he's not doing good in the class that we pulled him out of. 3 years later, when we were homeschooling, he informed me that they did not pull him out for enrichment, but they pulled him out and put him in a special ed class to shut me up. So yes, the schools bullied my baby. And it was racial. And anyone who knows me knows that that's not who I am, to scream and cry race. But when I didn't wear a wedding ring because I was sick and my hands were swollen, and my husband would come to the school to have lunch with his babies, they would say, oh, hey, so good you're here to see your children. When's the last time you saw them? They made wild assumptions about us that made no sense whatsoever. And the most egregious one was because I'm extremely cheap. It was field day. And they were like, buy the shirt and we're all going to sign them. Well, I didn't like none of them children. So I'm like, I'm not paying for a shirt for people to destroy. And I got there today and they were like, oh, another parent donated field day shirts to your children because you couldn't afford them. And I leaned in and said, I promise you we could employ that parent because I'm that person.
Yeah, we've heard a lot of stories like this video. We've heard a lot of stories like this video.
We heard that story last week.
We heard that story last week.
That's all I can say.
Almost every time we hear that story, it's because there's a black child involved.
And it's always the boys. My daughter got it pretty hard. My daughter got it harder than my son.
We do hear it,
but it's typically more the boys.
It is overwhelmingly black boys.
Adults are horrible. I just wish they would treat the parents the way they treated these children, and then I would get straightened out real fast.
It would.
Yeah, that's all. Ooh, that's it.
I don't know that there's a mechanism in the system to fix it, though.
I believe, and this is why we do this. I believe that if we can get enough people self-educating their child, the schools will have no choice.
That's presuming that the
Although COVID may have proved us a little wrong.
There's that.
Mm-hmm.
But also the parents weren't educating the children. The children were still being educated by these school systems.
Mm-hmm.
They were just doing it at home. So that didn't really test the theory. That being said, even if it had, though, that presupposes that the people within the system understand the flaws within the system.
Yeah. I just feel like if we have enough of an exodus in homeschooling, and right now there's a huge exodus in black homeschooling.
And I mean, that actually feeds into a conversation that we were having earlier today, which is why in the homeschool community is there such a push for black homeschooling in particular, more so even than society as a whole.
Well, because black people, when I started homeschooling, I was like the black person. And all of our relatives were saying, we fought so hard to be in school. How dare you take your kids out? So it took another whole generation, because I started homeschooling 20 years ago, for people to say, okay, do what's best for the baby. Our relatives were so mean to me. How dare I?
So then, as the, dare I say, token black family in the homeschool community that you were in, talk about that experience.
I'm a little traumatized, but I was able to hyper focus on the good that was there that I needed and block out the bad. There was some bad, but I, as a parent, could isolate to the best of my ability. Now my children tell me some things now.
Right. And so, as we are seeing now, current trends in homeschooling, which is one of the things that we talk about, there is this push for very monolithic homeschool communities.
I hate that.
Which we are leaning into as much diversity as possible. We think diversity is an amazing opportunity for children, but
we still have some monolithic going on because we're all artists.
We are all, we wound up being monolithic in the theater arts.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of sort of winds up being that way, even though culturally and racially, but you do attract who you are.
We're artists.
We're theater people. Mm-hmm. And so we have attracted theater
artist
people.
degrees. We both have actual artist degrees.
Yeah. So we've attracted theater people.
Mm-hmm.
But from a cultural, racial, socioeconomic standpoint, we do have some diversity, and we want to lean into that because we think that's very valuable for the kids. But that being said, at the end of the day, I understand the monolithic homeschool community because you've got to do what's best for the kids.
Here's how I dealt with that. I had my homeschool co-op, which was monolithic, and we were one of these things that
you were the
don't
anomaly.
belong here. And we just powered through it because we didn't care.
Right.
But then I also had a group of online Black homeschool moms I could go to and say, am I crazy, or did this really just happen today? So I had a Black emotional support group.
Right.
But I was never gonna isolate my kids into a Black only group. I met with several Black only groups, and I'm not a Black power kind of human being, and I didn't want my children doing a Black versus white thing.
Right.
And I believe the best way that you can operate in this world as an adult is to be part of a diverse community, go into people's homes, live with them as best as can, get to know them on a like family basis. Like, I think this is my sister. Like, you have
my children are hers.
Those are my children, and you need to leave them alone.
I'm not going to.
Here we are. So, like, you need that kind of relationship to understand race. And so I was never going to let my children be raised in a situation where that wasn't a thing. That's why our church was multicultural.
Right.
But yeah, I did have a group of Black women who were my emotional support, including the women whose book I mentioned, Paula Penderbrett. She was my homeschool mama, who I could email and say, I'm not having a good day right now.
Right. But I understand the impulse to create safe spaces for the kid.
Absolutely necessary.
For the babies, you got to create safe spaces for the babies. And so if we aren't intentional about creating these multicultural safe spaces,
then we end up creating monolithic safe spaces.
Because
here's the thing, monolithic
space.
safe spaces aren't always monolithically safe, because we've had experience with people who look like me, and we were not of the same mind at all.
I understand how the concept of a safe space has taken a political overtone. And in some situations, it can feel very political. I'm not so sure that safe spaces for adults or even for college students, unless they are actively processing trauma, are really of benefit to anyone involved. However, when you're talking about littles, when you're talking about elementary age children, when you're even talking about kind of the beginnings of middle school, there are ideas that if they're going to be discussed with that age group, they need to be done so very carefully. And it needs to be done in accordance with the family values, with the parents' consent, with the parents' understanding, and it has to be something that the parents are involved in. So I do believe that for age appropriate things, that idea censorship is absolutely okay and normal for that part of the developmental process. Now, if I think that if you haven't started engaging in differing ideas by the time you're solidly in middle school and in high school, you're going to be ill-equipped to interact with the world.
Now,
also, when you're dealing with trauma, when you're dealing with people who have had experiences that have negatively affected their mental health, they may need more bubble wrap than the normal person. Because you've got to, so in psychology, the term's resilience, and that's a whole different thing, and I'm not an expert on it. I've just kind of read a little bit, so I understand, neurotypical people who don't have the kinds of trauma that I'm talking about,
not me,
naturally have resilience. If you have a history of trauma, if you have something that deviates from the mainstream, whether that is a gender identity, whether that is a sexual orientation, whether that is a racial thing, whatever that is, those individuals may not have developed the resilience, because like any other skill, it's something you have to learn. And so, yes, go help people do that work so that their mental health is in a good place so that they can exist in society with the rest of us. However, in an educational context, and certainly for younger children, some of that innocence needs to be protected. And
which is the point I was trying to make. The first year we taught, every week I sent an email saying, this is next week's topic.
Yep.
Because I wanted to parents to be able to pull their children out if that was a topic for their children, or at least prepare their children for that topic.
Because we also had younger students.
We had very young.
We had very young students.
Very young students the first year.
Now
2
we're
years.
really just middle school and high school,
Yeah.
and
now we have a better
teacher.
temperature of the parents that we attract
Right.
and what they value, because we also have those conversations at the beginning of the year.
We do.
But that first year I was like, civil rights.
Here we go.
So whatever it was.
Student came in and sang "Strange Fruit."
She did. It was good too.
It was amazing.
But I let everyone know this is what we're teaching next week, because when you partner with parents, what we do, we partner with parents, and so our goal to be a safe place, make sure that the child is emotionally safe, emotionally ready for conversations. I've had to tell high school children to not have certain conversations in the room with middle school children, because if their parent hadn't broached that conversation yet, who were they to do it?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what I mean by safe. I don't believe in book banning. I'm just going to put that right out.
Oh, absolutely
I
not.
don't believe in a whole lot of censorship, but I do believe in giving the parent the first say in introducing the child to a topic.
Like, we dive into the hard subjects in our curriculum, when we teach a class. No, the hard stuff's going to be right out there front and center for everybody to talk about, because that's where the learning happens.
I think I cried year one.
I mean, that's
lot.
Fair.
Because the children handled the conversation so well.
Right. And so, no, I mean, having those conversations while acknowledging that there are different perspectives and different points of view, that's where the learning happens. And you have to be able to have those conversations. You have to be and this is a different take on the concept of a safe space. You have to be able to come in and have those conversations and not be afraid that you're going to make a mistake that's going to turn everybody against you.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Oh, yes.
to
Let's
go
end on a
on
light note. After what we have just gone through.
Like, I just went to Jesus and came back.
Speaking
oh my
of,
gosh. Maybe homeschool mama arriving at co-op. Driving for
Yep.
It's the motherfucking
Indeed.
we have all of
At
those
moments,
parents.
me. There are times that last one is me.
We have all those parents.
No, I
as it should be.
There is an element of as it should be, but I am going to disagree a little bit, because I don't know that that's newbie, veteran. Like, I don't know
it's personality styles.
It's personality styles too.
Like our one parent that's a newbie, nah, she always gonna be like that.
Right?
She's always gonna come with snacks for everybody, all the books, the calendar.
I think I started
in
out
triplicate with multicolored markers. She's always gonna be that. Oh, you did have a really nice notebook at first.
I love my notebooks. No, I love my notebooks, but I never had the that was my notebook. That was not my child's notebook. That was my personal notebook, because I have a fetish for notebooks. But no, I generally started like the third one.
Our person that's like the newbie one came in that way.
Right.
So no, it's personality types. That's
it is
cute.
personality
It's
types.
a really cute, fun video. But that really should
I've always been the last
redone
one.
as types of homeschool moms.
Yes, I've always been the last one, but then also
I've always been the second one.
One of my mentors in the whole homeschool process, the one who picked me up off the ground when we started in October of 3rd grade and said, "No, you can do this," who has been homeschooling forever. She's got a little and she's got adult children. So the whole gambit, but she's been homeschooling forever. Has always been the second one. Always been the second one, and will always be the second one. She has adult children, and she is the
How
second
would you classify me? You never saw me actually
I
homeschool.
never saw you actually homeschool.
I was the second one.
I accept that.
Well, my hyper-focused ADHD was plan, and then go for it.
I accept that.
So plan every summer, and then surf the school year.
So
it's
I really do think it's personality types, but that's absolutely
it's
the
cute.
personality
It's cute
that
and
you find.
funny, but that's not
But it's also entirely accurate.
No,
Like,
they
it's
nailed it.
absolutely the
Because when we
types
have a
of
parent that
personalities.
shows up like that every week as number 3, and she's been showing up like that since day 1.
So thank you for hanging with us this long. Let's talk a little bit about what we're doing here at CheesePress Publishing and what's coming next.
When we reach 5,000 subscribers, we are going to do a live. Now, here's what we need you to do. We need you to write us questions as everyone giggles and grins at me.
What is a live?
A live stream.
What is that?
A live stream.
I'm old. It's called a live.
No, it's a live stream.
Live stream. A live. We'll be doing a live. Or is that TikTok word? Anyway.
Going live, doing a live stream. They're 2 different things.
That's what we doing. What we doing is we doing a live stream. And then what I need you to do is to ask us questions so that we can include those on our live stream.
And we will have somebody on, while we are doing the live stream, we will have somebody behind the camera on the computer telling us what you're asking while we're doing it.
Yes.
We hope.
We will.
That's the goal.
We will.
Well, if we have to, we'll make Troy do it. Whatever.
Or we'll make JJ do it.
I know everyone
That
would
would
love
be
to
wild.
see Troy again.
That would
Yeah.
be wild if JJ were our moderator.
Hi, I'm Australian and my wife made me do this.
Right.
And then he proceeded to say the entire thing in as thick an Australian accent as humanly possible. It was delicious.
Friends, let us know. I'm just the voice behind the camera. Let us know if you want merch that has "Hi, I'm Australian and my wife made me do this" on it. Comments down below.
that.
Let us know. We will make the merch happen. We have ways of doing this.
Oh, we have merch. Well, we don't have merch yet. But since we're always like, what is this called? Like
our tea time?
Sharing the tea.
It's our tea time.
We decided that I thought that our merch should be t-shirts. But
She said
someone is more
T-E-E.
brilliant than me and
I
said that
heard
we need to
T-E-A.
mix teas. So we will be mixing teas.
I'm
and having
actively running down that
specialty
rabbit trail.
Teas when we get our merch. So hopefully it's going to monetize so we can do the thing.
So that I can place an order for my own tea blend.
So subscribe and join us for our live.
So subscribe and join us for our live show, which we will be streaming live on this here channel.
Just say bye, y'all.